The Swamp Thing. The quiet was a lie. Not the soft silence of a sleeping town, but the kind of heavy, expectant quiet that drops over a place right before something breaks. A quiet we had learned to dread since we were kids. That night, the silence of the deep swamp was a suffocating wool blanket, smelling of cypress and rot, pressing down on our eardrums. We were the four horsemen: Robert, Tony, Jimmy, and Kyle. We were 17. 17 years of being a problem, of getting arrested, of watching our parents check out, and only finding loyalty in the other three bastards who had nothing left to lose. I was the scrappy guy, good at breaking things. Tony was just as scrappy, dealing with the rough justice of the rural South, where his skin tone was often his primary offense. Jimmy was perpetually high, thanks to his dealer brother's supply. And Kyle, well, Kyle was the professional criminal, the one who worked the angles, especially the one where he had lost his leg in a car wreck when he was 13. That fake leg was his ticket out of everything. We stuck together because no one else cared. Love and support were TV concepts. Tony was getting out of the juvenile detention center after an altercation with some skinheads. They threw the book at him because of his priors and his skin tone, ignoring the fact he was attacked. We had already stomped him into the ground while Tony was inside, so all that was left was the ritual, the welcome home party deep in a swamp. Thank you for tuning in to this chilling tale. Please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, what is the most terrifying sound you have ever heard when you were completely alone? Kyle stole his grandma's massive old Buick Regal. We loaded up. We had a garbage bag full of beer we swiped from the back of a convenience store, enough pot to tranquilize a horse, and a handful of acid tabs and shrooms. We guzzled beer to 9-inch nails, racing toward the deep swamp at 85 miles per hour. The ride took 45 minutes of heavy drinking and chain smoking. The closer you get to the swamp, the worse the roads become. They are twisting spider webs of mud and potholes, changing shape with every heavy rain. We rarely made it to the exact same spot twice. Kyle finally managed to wrench the Buick into a muddy pull-off that looked vaguely familiar, and we killed the engine. The sudden silence, broken only by the hiss of cooling metal, was immediately replaced by the drone of mosquitoes. We started walking. Tony stopped us, smiling huge, his eyes already a little glassy. He pulled a quart-sized zip bag of mushrooms from his gigantic JNCO pants pocket. We split the bag into 4 fistfuls. No pausing, no chewing, just swallowing the earthy, bitter handfuls of fungus. If destroying your life was a sport, we were professionals. We plunged into the isolated dark of the swamp, moving deeper into the humidity and the rot. We were still thinking we were invincible. I had the beer in a backpack, heavy as a cinder block, stolen Pab's blue ribbon. Jimmy had the pot and the acid. Kyle predictably played the "I ain't got 2 legs, so I can't carry shit" card. Tony carried the gun. It was a cheap .38 revolver. I know that worries people, but deep in the swamp, with alligators, wild boars, and the non-zero chance of running into meth-crazed locals, you wanted protection. No one wins a fist fight against a 12-foot alligator. Normally, these trips were a hike that turned into an exploration once the drugs took hold. We'd spend the night trying to freak each other out, breaking things, burning small fires, and climbing high up the cypress trees. The mornings were always hung over hell, spent trying to find the car. The shrooms started kicking in as the sun started setting. I saw swirls and stretching shadows on the water. The forest took on a deep orange hue that filled me with a sudden, undeserved sense of warmth. We started dropping the bad jokes and moved into hushed tones. We weren't trying to be silent, but with the dangers around us, we instinctively lowered our voices. We were all vibrating on the same frequency of quiet adventure. It was a common phase at the beginning of a trip, tuning into the openness of the place. As it got darker, I started getting a bad feeling. a cold, oily sensation that crawled up my spine. I pushed it away. When you hallucinate, you have to control the feeling first. If you surrendered to bad feelings, the visuals and the sounds turn bad. I tried to reinforce the pleasant hum that was starting to fill my ears, but that oily doubt was planted. We got over a bog, pushing into thicker trees, and Kyle started complaining about his leg. He did this when he chickened out, but we never knew for sure. We all doubled back to the car so he could sleep it off in the back seat. He often needed help getting over logs and deep mud, so we had to carry him back toward the road. I noticed walking back toward the car felt better than going deeper into the woods, a familiar comfort against the unknown menace of the swamp. But I wasn't going to bail like Kyle. 3 was still a party. We left Kyle in the car, telling him to lock the doors. We headed off exactly as we had before. After only 5 minutes of walking, though, I noticed one of the logs I'd stepped over moments ago had moved. It was a massive, partially submerged cypress trunk. It couldn't have just shifted. The movement upset me greatly. I swallowed the observation, foolishly not saying anything. The pleasant hum in my ears turned into a high-pitched whine, almost like an ultrasonic siren. We went back over a few stagnant ponds and deeper into the forest, where the canopy closed overhead, making it truly dark. Without Kyle, we moved a lot faster. About 30 minutes of climbing over roots and pushing through shrubs, a violent shaking of the dense bushes to our right made us all stop. It wasn't close, maybe 20 or 25 feet away, but that was too close. Whatever it made, it sounded heavy, much bigger than a raccoon or a small boar. I pictured a massive gator or a large boar, neither of which was good. Years of doing stupid things together had locked us in step. Jimmy, Tony, and I started walking backward, slowly, lightly, trying to stay quiet. We moved about 20 feet like that. Then another violent brush shaking happened, followed by a sound that was almost a snarl. It was that guttural, tearing growl you hear when 2 large dogs suddenly attack each other. It sounded like it ripped the air. I felt 3 silent taps on my shoulder. It was Tony. That was our silent code. Run. Now. As fast as you can. In about 3 seconds, I was tapping Jimmy, and we turned away and ran full out into the dark. We were criminals. We were fast. I got about 6 steps before something slammed into the center of my back. It wasn't an impact that knocked me down, but a violent shove. I heard cans spilling out of the bag, popping on the ground, and smelled the sudden sharp scent of cheap beer. That fueled me. I ran harder. 5 minutes of pure, breathless running, and the sounds of the chase went silent behind us. We stopped when we came to a small clearing, a slight rise in the terrain where the ground was drier. "Hey, help me cross the log!" The voice was clear, familiar, and came from the other side of a narrow, muddy creek. It was Kyle. We stopped, breathing heavily. "What the hell, Kyle? I thought you were in the car," I yelled. Bang! 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 3 shots rang out over the water. Kyle fell over backwards, clutching the center of his chest. I whirled around. Tony was pointing the .38 revolver at me, his eyes wide and panicked in the dark. "What the hell, Tony?" I screamed, wrestling him. I slammed his elbow against a tree trunk. We struggled violently. I managed to yank the pistol free, throwing him off me. Tony stared at me, his face pale and wet with sweat. "Legs," Tony gasped, hands up. Motherfucker, Kyle had 2 legs. I stared at the spot where Kyle had fallen. "What?" I demanded, pointing the gun at Tony. "Kyle, he helped me cross the log 5 minutes ago, Robert. He didn't have his fake leg on. He had 2 real legs. I saw them. And that thing in the bushes was imitating him." I didn't want to believe him. I didn't want to believe my best friend had just murdered another one of our friends. Jimmy stood frozen, looking like he wanted to go home and climb into a hole. "We checked the car," I said, my voice shaking. "If Kyle is there, we figure this out. If he's not, we run." We made our way carefully back to the creek bank. We peered over. Kyle was gone. A trail of dark, viscous blood led through the brush and into the deeper woods on the far side of the bank. I started moving to follow the trail. Tony grabbed my arm, his grip tight. "To car first, Robert. Please, if Kyle isn't there, then we go after it." Tony was completely terrified. We turned and ran toward where we had parked the Buick. I kept the gun out, listening hard, making sure Tony wasn't going to grab it. We made it to the car. Kyle was sleeping in the back seat. His fake leg was off, resting on the floor of the car right where he always left it. He was breathing heavily, passed out. The relief was physical, a crippling wave that made me weak. I handed the gun back to Tony. "I wish I could tell you we stayed to figure out what happened, but we jumped in the car and sped off. All three of us agreed we definitely saw the top half of Kyle, and that was definitely Kyle's voice. We heard screaming for help. One of us may have hallucinated, but all three of us heard the voice, and the blood on the bank was real. I had some smeared on my pant leg. I was more worried we had killed some innocent guy camping in the swamp than anything else. But then I remembered the backpack. Beating down the back road, I pulled the backpack off the seat. The only thing left in it were 2 crushed, mangled Pabst Blue Ribbon cans. When I held up the pack, the entire backside was shredded, ripped by 4 perfect tears from a claw. Nothing in that swamp has claws like that. Cougars don't go that deep into the bog. The claws were too large, the size of a man's hand, but the creature that chased us had sounded smaller, maybe like a wolf or a large dog. I was still tripping by the time we got home, so I can't be 100% sure of anything, but nothing was ever on the news. Nobody was ever reported missing. The cops were never looking into it. I don't know for sure what we met in the swamp, but I don't know anything else that sounds like a wolf, has claws like a bear, survives a gunshot, and perfectly imitates the voice of a man. If it hadn't been for the extra leg, we would have walked right over to it with our guard down, and the silence would have been complete. Thank you for watching. If this story gave you a chill, please like, subscribe, share, and comment below. And stay tuned for more terrifying videos in the future.